Hey there, Revit Nation. This is Chris with Valor VDC, and today I'd like to take a few minutes, probably about a half hour, to talk to you guys about the new transition that Revit 2025 has made into .NET from .NET Framework. Yeah, I know. They just cut the framework out, right? Well, it's more like .NET 8. It's getting closer. Hopefully, they'll allow us to bring in Maui a little bit later, but that's it. And there are some minor differences when you set up the project. So if you're using 2024 and below, you don't have to worry about this. But once you hit 2025, all bets are off because now you're using different class libraries and things kind of run a little differently. And if you've made the unfortunate mistake that I did and downloaded the latest Visual Studio 2022 update, you'll find that things have changed a lot, and you'll see it on my screen. And you'll know what I mean if you haven't seen this yet. If you're watching this a year into the future, it's going to be no big deal to you. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in, and so we can get this thing moving. So what we have here is we have, I'm going to do this simultaneously in Writer and in Visual Studios, only because I like Writer better. But I know there's a lot of people out there that don't want to pay the small fee that JetBrains charges for Writer. You can get a 30-day download. If you go there, just let them know that Chris with Valor VDC sent you. It'd be much appreciated. One day I might become an affiliate. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start a new solution. So we're going to come here in the Writer. In the past, if you were using pretty much anything above 2020, you're using .NET Framework 4.8. But now that we're into the future now and we're all on one .NET for the most part, you're going to stay with the class library, but down here you're going to scroll down to .NET 8. And we're going to call this Revit 2025. Well, let me rename this here, take the caps off. Revit 2025-Writer, so I can keep them straight. And I'm going to save these in my Writer folder right here. So that's where this is going to go. And I'm going to click this magical create button. And it's off to the races. For the most part, on another screen. Lucky me. Let me drag this over here. So on this screen, looks just like the other stuff, right? Nothing different. Still namespaces and everything else. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to grab the references. And so we'll go here. We'll go to the program files, and we'll go to Autodesk, scroll on down to Revit 2025, and we will grab the classic Revit API DLLs, the API and the APUI, which should be right here. And we'll load both those in, and they will come in somewhere around here under the assemblies, and we will come down here and we'll go to properties, and it all comes up on my other screen. So I'll drag it over here, and we're going to say copy local. No, we're going to click OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to just delete this only because it seems like the right thing to do. Delete. And we're going to come in here and we're going to add a new class. And we're going to call it, say hello. And that's it. And didn't seem to make it in there. try that again. We'll call it say hello. There it is. And as with all things Revit, you still have to add the transaction at the top. And we're going to make this read only because we're going to do something very simple here. And then we're okay. Now we're going to add the iExternal command. There we go. And we're going to implement the members, delete this, and just say task dialog dot show. And we're going to say Revit 2025, comma, well, come to the Revit 2025 API. And we're going to go here. And we're going to stop. Oh, now we're just going to do the return result because we need it to succeed. And we're going to stop right here. So that's the setup for Writer so far. Not much has changed except that we're using a class library that's a .NET template, not the .NET framework library. Jumping over to Visual Studio, we're going to do the exact same thing. Normally, you would use this one for the 2024 and below, but today we're going to choose this one here. We're just going to click Next, and then we're going to name this one Revit 2025-VS. And we're going to put it in my repos file, and we're going to go there. And that's pretty much the difference. Oh, and we also have to choose our framework, which will be .NET 8. One thing I will say, when I first got this, I didn't have .NET 8 installed, the SDK. So you will have to install that SDK into your Visual Studio. And much like the Writer, we're going to have to go in here, but we got to wait for Visual Studio to boot up because it's a little slow. Much like Writer, you're going to have to come in here and add your references. And I believe, oh, looks like I don't. So let's go here and just say R, and we'll grab the Revit API again, and the Revit API DLL. We'll come in here and we'll drop those bad boys in here. We'll make sure it's 2025, and we'll click OK. And we'll click OK. And what we're going to do is, now we're going to go to the assemblies, and much like everything else, we'll just say copy local. We'll change that to no. And so what I'm going to do here, instead of retyping everything, I'm just going to copy it. And because I have ReSharper as part of my JetBrains subscription, I don't have to worry about having to add these using statements up at the top. So if you don't like having those using statements and don't want to add them, then you get ReSharper and you'll be golden. And much like Writer, you're here. I'm just going to go into Writer and copy this line of code here. Well, actually, these two. And paste it there. And so now we have the basis of our code done. Now, this isn't much different than what we've been doing. Admittedly, you're correct. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in there and we're going to start to build events. So when I start to build events here, I'm going to go into the properties of our thing. You're going to notice that this is way different than what you're used to. With this new Visual Studio, it kind of threw me for a loop. trying to figure out where everything is. And tell you the truth, I was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. What the hell is all this? So, the dialogue is different. It's a little prettier. I think they're trying to kind of compete with Writer and just with JetBrains in particular, and try to give you more options, which they did, but they didn't do it in a good way. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to the build events. So we're just going to endlessly scroll down, and here we go here. We're going to go into post events, and what we're going to do is we're going to I'm going to copy this code from here, and I'm going to paste it here. Now, in the older version of Visual Studio, you could just click in here, and then all of a sudden the build events would pop up, and you would get macros and a bunch of other happy stuff that you could get in there, and you could edit. Well, they took that away. Is it coming back? Pretty sure it will. People complain, and it'll come back. So all they did is they just give you this with this expanding box that gets bigger as you type. Like I said, I think if I were to delete this, see it gets smaller, and then as you type it gets a little bigger, but no macros. Kind of sucks, but thank you, Microsoft. Always pushing forward. And then going down here, we need to add the launch profiles. And if you're used to the old Visual Studio, you just clicked on something and then you had Launch Pro. And you didn't have a launch profile you had to do. You would just have a thing where you would just choose your program and you would start. This kind of threw me for a loop. But, again, this is Microsoft trying to compete with JetBrains. Writer's been doing this for years. So what you got to do is you got to come here and you got to create an executable file. And this is probably going to be for the 2020-24 and below. Not sure, but it is what it is. And then I like to name it. Whoops, I accidentally deleted it. I'm just going to call it Revit.exe so I know what it is. And then you come here and you just browse your program, which is down here. And you go here. And so now, that didn't take. Let's try that again. There we go. So now that that's there, we're good. We have a build event. I'm just going to delete this one so we don't get confused. Actually, I probably should have left that one so I can show you the difference here. So as soon as we get that there, we'll just X out of this, and everything should still be there. If I was to scroll down, okay, good. That's about it with this one here, although I didn't rename the class. So let me just rename this. Normally I would have just deleted it, but I'm just going to rename this to, say, hello, and you'll see why in a minute. Yes. And so now we're good. We're almost there. That's the main difference with Visual Studio. With Writer, there is no real difference. All you got to do is you just come over here, you click here, you hit executable, you give it a name, .exe, and then you choose your path right back here. And it fills in the rest, and you're good. So now we have to add in the manifest file. So I'm going to go here in the Visual Studio. One thing I will say Visual Studio does do better than Writer is the manifest files are actually manifest files, where it will actually pull them in, and you'll see the difference in just a minute. So I'm going to say new item. I'm going to come up here, and because there's a million different things, and I'm just going to choose manifest file. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to call it the same thing as I named my command. And let's put a dot add in there. Oh, one thing I did want to say was I can go ahead and I can start Revit 2025 now. Something I want to back up to. And I can come in here and I can build this DLL. It says here the build has succeeded. And if I was to come here to see where it went, there's a open and then Windows Explorer along here somewhere, right here. If I was to come over here, go to the debug folder .NET 8, you'll see that there's a DLL there for that. And now I can come in here to Revit 2025 and I can click New. And everything comes up on another screen. Not New Family. Let's try this one here. And what Revit 2025 will open up. And then I can go to add-ins, and I'm not supposed to have anything popping up. But now I can go to the add-in command here, and I can choose read only. And I can get rid of this one. I can say load. And I can come here. And I can go here. I can click on this. And I can run it. And you can see that that works through Jeremy's Revit dialog thing. So if I were to go here and go into Writer and do the same thing, build. It's copying it. And if I go to here, you can see it did the same thing. Built them all. And if I was to open up Revit 2025, I go here, I can load it. Find my writer. Open this up, click here, and there we go. So now we know whatever we got works. The rest of this, and that's pretty much the major part of the setup. If you want to go into the build events and copy the manifest file, stick on. If not, give me a thumbs up and push on. I will say before you leave that I haven't encountered other things, but I'm only dipping my toes into the .NET framework right now, or yeah, the .NET framework, .NET 8 for Revit. So I don't know how many more big changes are coming out. The last time I checked the Revit API docs, there's still no Revit 2025 here, so they haven't caught up yet. So I'm kind of ahead of the curve. The other thing is with the manifest file, you can come in here and we can start working on this manifest file. I'll open it up. I'll select everything and I will delete everything. and then I will copy a manifest file from somewhere else. Okay, now inside of Writer, we're going to add a manifest file. It's really not a manifest file, it's just a text file. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this going to name it the same name, so it's easier to find in our add-ins folder. Looks like I misspelled Revit. Spelling problems today. And we're going to call it .add-in. We're going to bring it in. And we're going to go in here. We're going to copy all of this to here. Say paste. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have this spelled the same way this is spelled. Especially the assembly, which is super important, and the full class, which is super important. And now that we got this assembly here, we're going to go down here and we're going to say copy if newer. We're going to paste that in there, and I'm also going to copy this here, and I'm going to come into this manifest file, Visual Studio. And like I said, there are subtle differences between Writer and Visual Studio. Visual Studio will read these XML files and they'll give you error checking, whereas Writer doesn't quite pick it up, and I haven't found a way to make it work. I'm sure there's a way out there. Leave a comment in the comments, a link or something, and I would be greatly appreciated to you. But for now, I just have to deal with a text editor instead of an actual IDE working it. So, and we're gonna rename this one to VS. And we're gonna come down here and call this one VS. And we're gonna go back into Writer. We're gonna get the GUID because I like the way Writer does the GUIDs versus Visual Studio. Whereas you gotta delete everything, Writer just gives you the frickin' thing you want. So, and with this manifest file, click on it and say copy if newer. Now, if we go to build, we're going to build this, and it should, the building's there, it's found, I don't see conflicts, Windows base, I don't see where it says all three were copied, so let's go ahead and look at that folder where it built to. Go to add-ins here, 2025, and there it is right there, boom. So it made it there, and if I go to Writer, we'll have the same one. Presumably, if I build it, they will come. And it says it finished copying 3, but I got warnings. So let's look and see what we got here. And it did not copy for some reason. Did I not add the build events here? I don't think I added the build events. I just did it in Visual Studio. Yes. So let me go back here, grab this. Oop, that's not what I'm looking for. Didn't copy. Okay, let's try that again now. And it says 4 files copied. Now, one of the things I will say with 4 files copied, one thing I have noticed with the newer .NET 8 versus the .NET Framework, you would only get 3 copies traditionally with .NET Framework. You would get the PBD file, the DLL, and the add-in copy. With .NET 8, you get this fourth file, the JSON file. I haven't figured out a way to turn it off. Again, if you know how to like not copy these or know where these are at so they don't copy, let me know in the comments, and everyone else, it'd be greatly appreciated. Now, one of the things I do like to do, I'm not doing it in this video, but I do have another video where I talk about how you can create a folder inside your add-in folder, kind of like what Jeremy did with the Revit add-in manager, where it copies everything into the Revit add-in manager, and instead of making your folder here endless. Like I said, I'll put a link in the video. You can go there somewhere around halfway through. I talk about this towards the end, and I'll show you how to make a folder using window command line features inside the build events. So that's pretty much it. If I was to come here and launch Visual Studio, or not Visual Studio, Revit from my writer, which is opening up on another screen that you can't see. I'll drag it over in just a second. It's going to ask me if I want to trust it, and I'll say yes, always load, always load. It pulled both those in, and it is still going. Oh, it failed to initialize one of them, something about the GUID. So one of these may not work. But for the most part, you'll open Revit, new file, whatever else. Like I said, Revit API Docs does not have the new 2025 interface up. Hopefully they get it up soon, and now all this stuff appears in your external tools, and you can come in here and it's because I got my class misspelled in VS Code. If I were to put a 5 there, it would work, and it worked with the other one. So that's pretty much it. Please don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Grow our community. As time comes on, I do plan on putting more content up. I noticed that there's a noticeable lack of MEP items, and as I struggle with them, I think we can struggle together, and hopefully we can work together and figure out some of these struggles. But I do have some ideas for placing vertical pipes. Drawing vertical pipes inside of Revit can be a pain in the butt. I did write a short little piece of code that will work, and I will share that within the upcoming weeks. Thank you and goodbye.